For this topic, just the background, the reason why we came up with this is there have been some queries that we receive about, once we go into a BCM career, where can we go from here? What are the prospects? What are the things that are available out there? So we thought that maybe this is a good opportunity for us to share from our perspective what we see is out there, and hopefully that will entice more of you to perhaps join the BCM career, to make this a career for yourselves. Okay, so yeah, okay, so this will be my presentation later. Okay, so before I begin, so let's start with the video first. This is the video by Bala. So we will play the video, and then I'll keep quiet, just
Get the
listen to the
fundamentals
video.
right.
All right,
Because,
enjoy the
as you
video.
know, the foundations should be strong. So if you have varied experience in different fields, be it finance or any other field, it will have an added advantage because you know the whole operations of the business as well. My name is KG Balaji. I'm the cluster head of operational resilience. Business continuity in a broad term, for a layman, it may be a pretty boring term, right? They all think like it's a technical or complicated term, which is not the case actually. Because in terms of everyday life, we all have continuity plans in place. Like as I said, the example is the Grab option, right? If a Grab doesn't turn up, you either take the MRT or you book another option, right, or comfort or whatever. So that's basically I would relate it to a business continuity, because at the end of the day, you're continuing your journey. There's no break in the journey. Same applies to the business as well. Continuity of services to the client. The key factor would be a growth mindset, and a positive attitude, given the fact like I want to move away from my comfort zone. So when I had this opportunity for a role in the business continuity, I thought it's the right time for me to switch to get out of my comfort zone. The best advice what I got is life is not fair. So which means you don't expect the returns when you're doing. You continue to do your best, then things will happen when the right time happens. So that's the best advice. So till date, I've been working on what I've been tasked to without expecting the returns. So far I'm a happy man, I would say. As a business continuity professional, you need to have a lot of patience. When crisis happens, there's always the tendency for people to point fingers. So basically, all may be pointed to you. How come we have never done this? How come we have not done that? So which means you need to be patient, or you don't have to ego doesn't come into you. So you need to absorb everything, take a deep breath and get on with the things so that you ensure the continuity of operation happens and you support the business. So that is the key thing I would advise. So otherwise, for a fresher, any degree would suffice. As long as you have a positive attitude and a growth mindset, it's just a skill which you can acquire over a period of time. Get the fundamentals right, because as you know, the foundations should be strong. So if you have varied experiences in different fields, be it finance or any other field, it will have an added advantage because you know the whole operations of the business as well. And to add, the key qualities of a person to do the BC role is to be resilient, which means, as I mentioned earlier, I think when you're managing the crisis, things will not go as you expected. So you should be able to absorb all the tension and just bounce back so that you can support the business at all times.
Okay, so that was the first video. Well, before we play the next video, I think we'll just pause for a while because there are some people in the waiting room. So I'll ask Claudia to admit those, because if we do the admission while the video is playing, unfortunately, the video will pause. Okay, so these are some of the technical limitations we face nowadays. Okay, so yep. Okay, so I believe we have additional people that have joined us in this webinar. So thanks very much, everyone, for joining this virtual AGM. We are right now in the middle of the webinar. So we have just played the first video that was recorded with our EXCO member, Bala, with regards to be hireable. All right, so the next video is also with Bala, but it's on a different team itself. So let me just move on to the next video.
Get the fundamentals right, because
Yeah,
as you know, the foundations should be strong. So if you have a
yeah. Sorry, the next video is my tech story. Okay, so let's just watch the
So I
video.
created my
Thanks.
passion, right? So basically, you need to, what, as they say, if you don't like the job, love the job. That is what I did, right? COVID-19 has opened the eyes for all Singaporeans like us, right? I think we never thought this will affect us. We have a good infrastructure, good governance, good government, everything is there. My name is KG Balaji. I'm the cluster head of operational resilience. Early 90s, computer was the hot topic, and I grew up in India. So Indians are the computer genius. So that is how I moved into from electronics and communication engineering. Then I worked in the automobile industry as an internship, then into the technology field. So that's how the whole thing drifted into the technology field. So I created my passion, right? So basically, you need to, what, as they say, if you don't like the job, love the job. That is what I did, right? So since I had the option to work in the technology, I started liking the job. So that is why I was able to grow in my career within that particular field. The COVID one was a very challenging one for me, because I think it just, if you recollect, it just happened during Chinese New Year Eve. So we need to send out notification to 10,000 plus staff to say that, okay, come Monday, you may not be able to come to work. So that was a very challenging stuff, because we need to do within a short span of time, and we didn't know how it is going to blow up, because we were living in the unknown. So it was just picking up, and we don't know how fast it's going to spread. So that was quite a challenging situation for me. So I would say, I think the mindset of Singaporeans have changed drastically post-COVID. The worst experience was, I came to Singapore in 1998. I was 27 years old, right? So I was thrown into one of the foreign banks trading floor. So I had no experience of the trading floor, and I was given an opportunity to support the trading floor. So it so happened like I used to start at 7 a.m. in the morning, and it's just like crazy, right? There's a bunch of people shouting in the trading floor, making trades, and I was absolutely young and I had no experience. I was just learning things on the ground. So one day when I landed up at 7 a.m., none of the systems were working. So then we investigated, and we went to the server room, and it was all waterlogged, totally water, right? Then the senior guys came and said, what's happening? So I had to pull up our sleeves, and the whole team went there. We had to use the sponge to take out the water. So within 1 hour, you won't believe it, within 1 hour, we were able to restore the whole system. When I was able to manage that particular tension where every business is calling and every 15 minutes they want updates, that's the classic way to manage a crisis. That was a real crisis where if you don't bring up the systems, it'll be a regulatory impact, reputational impact, and your job is on the line, right? You get fired. I would say it made me more resilient. So I know how to manage that. It's just, as you said, as you face adversities, your resilience grows. So that, I would say, it would be the first step for me facing such a crisis. So which means I've grown over a period of time. No, the key thing is, right, you need to be open for any opportunity. Sometimes someone will ask you, are you interested in that? You need to explore it, right? Just don't let it go, right? You think at the pros and cons, how it's going to build your career over a long period of time. So that is what I did in my career. When I moved into different roles, people were thinking, how come you have a good role? How come you want to shift? You've been there for 5 years and you know what is happening on the ground. You're in the comfort zone. So when you go into a new field, it's always a learning. Learning is a lifelong journey. So you learn new things. So end of the day, when you're end of your career, you will know a whole broad perspective of things. So it's not something you need to be a specialist. And more important now, I think most of the industries are looking at generalists, not as specialists. So you can specialize in one area over a period of time, move to become a generalist. So that will help when you move into the C-suite category. So which means you can look at an overall broad perspective of the organization and make the right decision for the organization.
Okay, I hope y'all enjoyed the video that was done sometime last year, just to share our various experiences. And from time to time, we actually do have this sort of podcast um, that goes onto our website for y'all to have a listen to with regards to our experiences. Okay, so yeah, so let me now go into the BCM, the webinar, where I'll share from my personal experiences with regards to a career in BCM. For myself, I've been BCM for like more than 20 years already. What is the overview? Well, I would say it is quite a specialized niche discipline. I call this a discipline because there are actually professional qualifications that's available for BCM practitioners, right? And from a needs perspective, the need for BCM special knowledge and specialty actually come from both the public and the private sector. So if you all are wondering why are the company logos below that, well, just wait for a few more slides and I'll come around to that to explain why I mentioned or why I have these company logos at the bottom. So maybe I'll start off by sharing, what are some or which organizations that I'm aware of that actually have BCM needs. This come from my personal experience, having been in the BCM industry, like say for 20 over years. So these are organizations that we know of through work, through contact, and this is only a sample. I would say this is only a small sample. You have organizations from the public sector, right? Organizations like PA, MSF, Parliament, MCCY, even LTA. And you have organizations from the private sector, right? Like BH Global, ERS, Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy that comes under NUS, and financial institutions as well. The bottom row over there, Soybil, Citibank, NTUC Income, they're all from the financial institutions. And no one, you may surprise you all, but organizations, the black box that you see there, Fabian and Cool, that is actually a law firm. So you may surprise you that think, oh, why actually would a law firm require BCM? Well, the reason behind that is because the law firm, they service a bank, a global bank. And so to the global bank, this law firm is considered a critical service provider, one of the outsourced service vendors. And for those of you who are within the financial industry, you know that the MAS BCM guidelines, they look at the financial institutions to ensure that the key service providers are BCM ready. So that's one of the reasons why organizations like law firm and other service providers, they do actually go down the BCM route. And in fact, for this particular firm, they actually went to attain the ISO 22301 certification. Right? And the next slide, these are actually just more organizations that have gone down the BCM route. The common factor around these organizations, they are generally, I would say, VWOs, voluntary welfare organizations. They actually manage homes for the destitute, as well as um, some underprivileged people, some of the population that are maybe handicapped. So that's the common denominator across this. So even in the welfare sector within Singapore, they are also looking at BCM, because you can imagine some of these organizations here they provide residential services. So if you can imagine, if one of the homes, let's say, that has 150 residents, and if something happens to the home, where are they going to relocate the residents? So this sort of thinking, planning as to, where do they go, which of the residents goes to which homes, and things like that, all those goes into the BCM planning. So like I say, these two slides are only a sample of organizations that that I personally am aware of that have gone down the BCM route. There are many, many more, and I hope that, for many of you, your own organizations have gone down the BCM route. If not, then perhaps I think you should join us for future BCM BCM conferences and events, and we'll be more than happy to share our experiences with you, to share with you our what I call the battle wounds. Okay. So um, I'll move on to sample BCM roles. So I think one of the things we always would like to think about is, what are the roles, what different roles are there for BCM. It's actually quite wide, I would say. I've listed here broadly about eight roles. One is what I call the internal subject matters, uh, internal subject matter expert, SME for short. And these would why I refer these as people, BCM managers within organizations. So you work only for your organization, and you look after your organization's BCM matters. And for many organizations, especially if it's a global one, you have BCM managers for the respective businesses, and even looking after location. Then moving on to regional, like what Bala shared earlier, he's looking after the regional BCM for Standard Chartered. And eventually, there's always an opportunity to go into global, right? So for example, the local banks in Singapore, the group head of BCM, in my dictionary, that would qualify as a global role already, because they look after the entire BCM program for the local banks across all locations. And of course, there are external subject matter experts, right? So sometimes they may have organizations contract to BCM managers. Then we have consultants, right? Some of us in the BCM, in the BCC Exco are consultant. I used to be a consultant as well, providing consultancy in BCM as well as crisis management. And there's also internal, external auditors. From my own personal experience, there are many BCM auditors, or let me put it the other way. There are many auditors that do BCM audit that are actually not, they have not gone round through the BCM training. Many of these auditors, when they audit BCM functions or BCM programs, a lot of them are actually tech auditors, right? So sometimes they may not have the full appreciation of what the BCM discipline entails. So there's always a role for internal BCM auditor or external BCM auditor. Then of course, on the other side of the table, there's always a regulator. So MAS or even other government organizations, right? They do have BCM people within the organizations that look either at their own organizations BCM, or look at other people's, those entities that they regulate, right? Looking at their BCM program. There's also a compliance role that is out there available. And last but not least, right, company committee or board members. I think this one is a emerging area, because if you look at recent government guidelines that come out, particularly like let's say the MAS where they have the tech, the TRM guidelines, they actually specify that certain board members need to be well versed in some of these risk area, be it IT or BCM. So I think increasingly regulators would be looking at companies to appoint board members that can oversee certain aspect of risk within the respective organization. Right. So I say these are just roles I can think of right now. It's not exhaustive. I'm sure many of you can think of other roles, but I just like to share, that it's not just one single boring role, if you like, where you are stuck in there for years. I think if we are flexible enough, and if the organization is uh, big enough and has the opportunity, I think we can actually broaden our knowledge within many organizations. Professional qualifications, we all know Singapore is a paper chase industry, right? So what kind of qualifications are out there in the BCM discipline? Well, first and foremost, there is the CIT BCM, certification in IT and business continuity management. So this is administered by the Computer Society itself, SCS. um, so this actually covers three areas, three broad areas, right? Data center management, business continuity, as well as IT disaster recovery. And I think we all can appreciate that these three disciplines actually are very closely knit together. So beyond our shores, there is the Disaster Recovery Institute International, DRII. This is a US-based organization. They also conduct courses, and they also have professional qualification. And where there is a US entity, there's always a UK entity, and that is the BCI, Business Continuity Institute, based out of the UK. So BCI is similar, I think, in role in their role as DRII, just only that BCI is based out of the UK. And there's actually quite a fair amount of collaboration between the two institutes from time to time. Things like coming up with a common glossary of BCM terms. That is one of the projects that they had done together. And also the BCM Institute, right? This is also a local organization, or rather, shall I say, it's based in Singapore. So they also offer their form of training and their qualification, and etc. etc. So these are just, I would say, some of the more popular or more organizations that we see more in the local industry. So if you were to ask me what sort of qualification would be best, right, or which one should you go for, I think, we as SES, we don't really endorse anyone. I think you have to look at what are your requirements, right? If you're looking for a professional qualification that is recognized globally, then I think a qualification that is given by a global institution would suit you better. But if, let's say, you are just contented, or you just want something that is uh, locally well recognized, then you can go for an organization that's locally based in Singapore, perhaps, and that should suffice as well. So it really depends on your needs, and as well as your organization needs. And a lot of these qualifications, they actually do have government funding from time to time. So things like funds like from SITRAP and so on and so forth. So they do offer funding for Singaporeans, and some even offer funding for PR, permanent residents, as well. So do check it out. I mean, if any of you are interested to attain professional qualification, do check out these various institutes, or you can even go to others, and also check out the funding that is available from the government, especially nowadays in the COVID period. I think the government is more uh, generous, more willing, I would say, to upskill each of us, right? That's the term that they use, upskilling. Okay, so I thought personally I'll share with you what my career path has been in terms of my experience through the 20 over years, just to give you all an appreciation as to what are the possible paths that you could you could go through, right? I started off in OUB as the internal subject matter expert. So I was a BCM manager within OUB itself, and this was back in May 1997. And then I move on. So this was a very much a local bank. I was among the pioneers to set up the BCM team, the BCM program within the bank. Then I move on to ABN AMRO. So this was a regional role in the European bank. Then after that, I went on to MAS, where I was involved in developing the BCM guidelines. And at the same time, I was also involved in looking at their own BCM program within MAS. And I did some inspection as well, right, of organizations. So that was on the other side of the table, being a regulator, uh, uh, of the BCM, or rather being looking at BCM discipline with from a regulator's point of view. Right. Then subsequently, I moved back onto the corporate world to do into JP Morgan, followed by ORM, consulting, where I was doing consulting, I was doing training, and I was doing auditor's role as well, right? Auditing organizations for ISO 22301 certification. Following which, I went on to a company called Assure IT. This is also a local SME, and I was doing consulting work and auditing work here, not just in BCM, but we were also doing IT auditing work as well. And my current role right now is back in the organization, a corporate world, BNY Mellon. So I'm actually doing disaster recovery planning right now. So not so much BCM per se, but a close relative of BCM, right? Disaster recovery, IT disaster recovery program for APAC. Right. So you can see, I guess, just from my example here, over the past 24 years or so, there have been various roles that I have been in. And these are just a sample of what y'all can actually explore if y'all were to decide to take up a path in BCM. So it's not just limited to BCM. Is you're looking at IT disaster recovery, and even a broader sense would be risk management and even enterprise risk, ERM. I think right now a lot of organizations are talking about ERM, where you integrate all the various risk disciplines within an organization. So I think being in the BCM role actually puts you in a good position to fulfill those kind of ERM roles in an organization. Okay. So yeah, so I thought I finished this seminar with this to entice you all. And not that I'm encouraging you all to leave your current organization, because if not, your bosses will probably clobber us. But when I did just a quick search from LinkedIn, these are some of the roles that have been posted out there that relates to BCM. So if you actually do a search of business continuity management within LinkedIn for the jobs, right? These are the things that that would be flushed out, and some of them are posted like only a few days ago, right? So you have various organization consultants like Ernst and Young. You have organizations like Food Panda, and even the network company Palo Alto. So government, of course, government departments like I shared earlier, the public sector, they have roles in pertaining to BCM, even NTU as well, and of course, not forgetting the FIs, right? So this is just one of the FIs that was currently looking for BCM person or persons with BCM knowledge. So again, this reinforces the point that I think BCM is a career, is a role that is required, I guess, by many organizations. Some, I do admit, some organizations, the BCM manager's role is double-headed, but some are specialized, right? They just concentrate on BCM or ITDR. Right. So I think with this, I just want to, like I say, entice you all to let you all see that there is good prospects, let's put it that way, in the BCM world out there, and there's a demand for this sort of roles. Okay. So that pretty much brings me to the end of this the webinar aspect of today's session. I hope it has been useful to those that have that join us.